Welcome back. Now, what does the future of hotels look like? And what is the new normal for hotels and hospitality? Because the COVID-19 pandemic has brought deep changes in tourist behavior and uncertainties concerning their needs. So to try and adapt to these evolving changes, hoteliers are increasingly shifting to new technologies to offer a new customer experience. Hospitality is being redesigned to allow for flexibility and greater personalization at the level of customers' treatments in hotels. I am joined by four people who know exactly, so they hopefully will anyway, know exactly what's going to happen in the future with hotels, each from their own perspectives. Doris Greif is Managing Director and RVP Operations Europe and Middle East of the Langham Hospitality Group. Dinky Puri is CEO, Eagle Wing Group. Benjamin Clifford is the founder and CTO of Nevaya. And Dimitrios Buhalis, Director, eTourism Lab and Deputy Director, International Centre for Tourism and Hospitality Research at Bournemouth University Business School. Welcome, everybody.
Hello,
Good to see you. Dimitrios, I wonder if I can turn to you first to give us perhaps some introductory thoughts and an overview of what you see as being the prospects for hotels in the future.
Thank you, Rajan. I think hotels and hospitality have always created fantastic experiences and memorable experience for travelers, that they are going to different places to see and experience destinations, or they're going as business travelers to facilitate a range of different meetings, conference, incentives, and so on. And hospitality has always provided the home away from home and office away from office. And I think this is something that we'll see in the future, but with a twist. I think where we are going in the future is this transformational experience where when someone comes to a hotel, they'll kind of like to feel at home, then they would like to connect with people, and they would like to have real experiences. So I think we're going to go away from some of what I call the plastic experience, the procedures, this here you ask, all the kind of operating procedures, to much more kind of hospitality from the heart, and real connection, real engagement. And also, we will need to actually understand why people are coming to us in the hospitality industry, what they need, and understand what is their context in that particular moment. And quite often, people do not know what they want. So I think the hospitality industry will emerge as this kind of magician, if you like, that will manage your time that you have with us. So if you come to my hotel, I would like to take your 7 days or 2 days that you're going to stay with us, or even 3 hours, and make value for time for you. So the 2 days that you're going to spend with us will be memorable experience that you're going to go away and you're going to say, yes, I went to this hotel and I had the most fantastic time in my life. You'll become very loyal, you'll come back, or you'll become an advocate. You'll be telling people that this is what we would like to do. So to shortly answer your question, it's really hospitality from the heart. It's really engagement, value for time and for money, and making sure that we engage with consumers to create transformational experiences.
Thank you, Dimitrios. We will come back to you. Doris, I mean, you're the coalface, if you like, of this. You deal day to day with real people coming into your hotels. What, for you, does the new normal look like in hotels? I mean, when it comes to lobbies, bars, rooftop pools, room servicing, all that stuff, how will it be different, do you think?
Well, I think we need to start with what it is right now. I mean, as you know, being here in London, we were able to reopen under certain guidelines our hotels last Monday. And in the absence of international travel, where we really do not know yet how long it will stay this way, we created with Langham a number of packages focusing on staycations. People can't go away as yet for their holiday. So it is really, really your local travel which dictates what we do. And as Kostas outlined earlier, it is all about making sure our guests are feeling comfortable with us and also our colleagues. So all sorts of healthy and safety measures we have in place are actually now even more important, because whilst we are going well ahead with the vaccination status, guests as well as our colleagues need to make sure that they feel comfortable dealing with each other. So, of course, technology helps a lot with contactless check-in. So, nobody needs to touch that registration card anymore. QR codes on food and beverage menus. But there is still also a big customer base who wishes to have that menu. So we provide both options to our guests. In terms of staycations, I think at Langham we are calling our frontline colleagues in particular the wellness and well-being concierges, making sure that our guests know that we do everything to provide safety, yet having the 5-star luxury service in mind. On the staycation front, we created packages, and I'll give you Sydney as an example, and Hong Kong in particular, with the adoption of pets, which took place over this pandemic. We created special staycation packages where they don't need to leave their pets at home anymore and have dog sitting sessions available and so on. And in Hong Kong and Sydney particularly, that was a fantastic success. Here in London, we launched a resort in the city package where we teamed up with providers like Tally Ho in London, where we organize bike rides around town, but also let guests experience the things we do in hotels. We have a cooking school, so there's a lot of activities for guests to have a little taste of what we do in hotels. The flower making sessions, the master classes in tea, but also cocktails, and there's a lot of uptake, which we really enjoy. And whatever that new normal is going to be, we still don't know yet. I don't think we should live in the illusion that things will go back to the way they were in the near future. I think this is here to stay for a while. And I'm picking up what Isam said in the earlier session on hybrid meetings. They will stay for a while. And we just had last month as Langham our Global Leadership Conference on a hybrid basis. And it was heartwarming to see all of us around the globe in different time zones still being able to have a good discussion with each other and seeing each other. Do we want these face-to-face meetings back? Absolutely. But there will be a little bit of time to wait for this. And maybe one last comment on creativity and the innovation we stand for at Langham. At our Cordis Hotel in Hong Kong, we had all these empty spaces in the ballrooms and still have them. So we created a kind of a movie theater where the ballroom was converted. Instead of binge watching Netflix at home, we had very comfortable beds, luxury linen, and we served, the popcorns and the drinks. And our guests in Hong Kong absolutely love it. So creativity, innovation, and adaptability is key in these days, and will stay for a while.
Just pick up on a couple of things there. One is obviously sanitation and space are going to be premium factors for clients. So does that mean that, for example, I don't know, breakfast buffet will not exist anymore, or does that mean that shared elevators will not happen? I mean, just give me an idea of how you're looking at that.
I'm picking up at your breakfast comment. We have abolished breakfast buffets quite a while ago at Langham. In our luxury hotels, we aim to do the proper a la carte service, if you will, but also pandemic-driven buffets, I think, will be a challenge going forward. Maybe we had a little bit of an advantage because a lot of our hotels are in mainland China, who got hit very early in this pandemic, so we learned from the colleagues in China how to adapt the sanitation, but also thermal screening has been installed throughout our hotels, front of house, back of house, so that also suppliers, the colleagues and our guests get screened. And of course, we distribute, masks, sanitization kits throughout our hotels. And I think that is here to stay for a while, because what we are seeing also now in this last week after reopening here in London, whereas at the first time we reopened in summer of last year, there was a lot more reluctancy of people wearing masks and keeping the space. And this has completely changed now. People are very, very careful, and that's a good thing. Restaurant seating, indoor capacity, of course, has been reduced. But at the same time, we took the opportunity to increase outdoor capacity. So we've created a major terrace garden for our opening last month. And it's really, really good to see guests not only take it up, but also keep the space. And I think the awareness and the realization of how serious this pandemic is has really hit in. So both our frontline colleagues, ourselves and our guests are really working hand in hand here.
Thank you for the moment. Dinky, you basically work on two levels, don't you? Because I think you have some hotels, but you also advise and enable investment in new assets in the hotels. Tell me, how do you see the future? Is it going to be, are certain types of hotels going to prosper in the future?
Well, look, I'm optimistic of the future, and let me briefly give you a little bit of research. For example, over the past years, we've seen about 473 hotels open, which is about 160,000 rooms. 21 shows 155,000 properties opening. 22 shows, again, about similar number of hotels opening with about 52,900 rooms. 2023, little lower than that, with about 21,000. Dubai, or UAE, quite clearly stands out as a top producer, with about 203 hotels, and it's about with 60,000 rooms coming to be. Saudi comes after that. And the best part is the mix is 50-50 between luxury and mid-market. So signs of investment, development, and hotels going forward is, I personally believe, I'm optimistic about it, and it's encouraging. The key factor here for us as investors who invest in hotels, who advise, who asset manage around the region, is that vaccination rates and countries have managed it pretty well. Now we've got to just get on with this. We can't cripple the industry. We can't cripple a country. And I think if I, being a Singaporean, I look at Dubai or UAE and mirror it with what we do in Singapore. And I can honestly and prudently say that I think Dubai and the region and UAE at large have managed it extremely well. They're managing risks, they're opening the market, and you've seen Hassan talk about it, and I endorse whatever he said. The key factor here is that an investor has also recalibrated his own thinking as to where he's going to, in which asset class he's going to put his money. He's rethought return on investment, and most probably he's come out a little more intelligent after sizing down what the product is going to be all about. And I hereby and firmly believe, and we've learned it from Singapore, will be landlocked, is to create hybrid products at the end of the day, knowing that markets are going to be tough. It's not going to be business as usual, but it's going to be business. People will travel. Human beings travel. And I'm optimistic that as we get on with things, we've got to work collectively. The government's going to do their job, which they do. We shouldn't be trying to do those. We got to find spots that we believe that will bring the right investments. And the area is so blessed in terms of the geographical location. I'm not worried. I am not worried. I think it looks optimistic, and I really believe that you'll see things improving as long as we collectively work with the authorities, partner with them, and we're a little more disciplined than we were in the past.
I saw you on stage last week talking about the hotels of the future, and you used that word hybrid. Can you unpack that word for us a little bit? When you say hybrid, what does that actually mean? Does that mean apartments as well as hotels? Does it mean business as well as leisure? Explain that to me.
Rajan, you see, you only got a given piece of land against a cost of land. The key factor here, where an investor wants to work with a developer and a brand, is to ensure how does he create different revenue streams to complement the cost of investment and return. If there's a particular segment, if you do a vanilla hotel, and that the demand-supply equation doesn't work, but there is a demand factor in extended stay, residential, or apartments, you got to look at that and convert that to really make it more meaningful as a business. Now, where I struggle is twofold. One is certain brands have very little domain knowledge, and they try and run the business outbound how they run it, maybe in Americas, Australasia, or maybe South Asia, without enough expertise on ground, whilst market or authority norms actually mature. And that's where conversation between an investor and local authorities need to happen a little more aggressively to induce investors and say, listen, your strata title, for example, is not totally there. However, we believe corporate travelers, project people on projects, look at safety, one in a service apartment, one a residential, they want to own title. How can we make that happen? And that's the key differentiator, which will make the business successful and handle the market trend where it's going. Now, those brands who have worked in the region understand how they're going to realign operation versus local law and manage the risks going forward are going to be in the front line, while others get to know it and manage risk. The risk appetite needs to change for an investor and a brand.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to you soon and ask you about what your direct advice would be to potential investors. And we might even role play a little bit here. But Ben, I want to turn to you. Now, Ben, you're fascinating because, and I'm sure you're fascinating in every way, but
thank you.
But basically you come from a family-run hotel background, don't you? An independent family-run hotel. And yet now you are working very much in technology. And let's just go into this technology. You don't have to bit of explaining here, because obviously Doris mentioned contactless, but contactless is just the tip, isn't it? It's just a tiny part of this.
Yeah, it's really quite interesting. So I came from a family background. I was literally born in a hotel and ended up seeing systems not talk. So I ended up building little interfaces for things that were pretty esoteric and painful at the time. And I built what was later called an OTA as a project at university for something to do. And the first HSA gateways we built ourselves, and all this started to focus on guest technology. This sometimes lagged behind what people expected at home, but there was a time when we used to go to a hotel and expect to get more TV channels and movies on demand and that sort of stuff. A hotel was a better place. For a long time, hotels have not offered what people could get at home, and we've been catching up. So I think technology's played an interesting role there as we try. First of all, we were sort of competing. I've got this, you've got that, I've got this. We've now got this sort of ambient area where people are bringing their own content and their own experiences. Right now, it's Chromecasting is a sort of name of that, where people bring their own content and enjoy that in the hotel. I think extra things will come too, and it's how they're realised. I'm really interested in how things like contactless, like you mentioned, have become something we have to do now. And they're processes that the hotels used to own. And if we take that for a second, contactless check-in, was a really great touch point for hotels to start imparting their mission, their brand into guests. It felt like if you had a good experience at reception, it was really very good. It was the first time you often spoke to the guest, and now we've got contactless check-in. It's a neat process, and everyone does it because it feels safe. But I wonder if there's a gap now whereby technology vendors have made these processes, and hotels are having to use them. The guests want them now, but I think actually they've been handed over to the tech vendors for a while. I wonder if the hotels are going to want to get those back at some point, because they're interaction points with the guests. So I think perhaps along the title of the talk, the future is allowing hoteliers with their domain-specific knowledge, particularly of their guests, their market, to design these experiences. So rather than tech vendors like us make contactless check-in and bring your own content, that sort of thing, what you actually end up with is a toolkit that actually enables the hoteliers to build their own experience, so something that fills the gap in between. So the tech vendors are no longer saying, I believe this is the way we do this, here you go, here's a product you take. Is actually, here's a toolkit, I've made it so you can use it, and people in charge of your guest experience can go and build that and use that. So we start to use technology as not as a stopgap that's making people feel safe, but actually something to extend what we previously had at a check-in experience, for example. And then I think we've now got extra places where we can talk to these people. So we can talk to guests pre-stay and post-stay with apps. It always used to be it certainly felt like a fight to get space on someone's smartphone to use their app. It's like, am I going to install that app? Well, 9 times out of 10, I don't, because I used to stay at a lot of hotels per year and I don't want 50 apps. Now I might have to. There's a different value proposition, and maybe the hotels can use it as an example or a way forward to actually say, well, I've got this app, it's not as personal, but actually I've got a different reach. It's not as deep, but it's wider. So before and post, but how do we focus on making that better and get the hotel's mission in there really?
Can you tell me how far your product has spread? Where are you now in terms of your relationships with hotels?
Our own product is in 30 countries. I think, I don't know how many tens of thousands of hotel rooms directly, but we power a lot of interactions between systems. So often we're white labeled and we're actually inside other people's products. So some of the products you'll see for apps and guest experience, like controlling your AC and your room blinds and that sort of stuff, we're quite often what we call the middleware part in there. So we're quite often there, very quiet, keeping quiet, just doing those things. But of course, we provide TV, user experiences, casting, and Wi-Fi, and all those sort of good things. And just thinking about that's one of the things where we've seen surprise and success. We built a system so hotels could design their own TV experience, and we thought we knew about TV interfaces. And we sort of did a little bit, but what we found was by bridging this gap from a tech vendor to here's a toolkit, how would you like your TV system to look, for example? How do you want to greet the guests? Do you want to play music and turn TV on when we see them present their room key card or now their phone at the door? What do we want to do? By giving that to the hotels and enabling them to do that, they built far better stuff than we could do because they understood their guests better. We thought we did, but the minute we almost exposed that and took the tech away and said, here's a toolkit, you can build this and work with them to build something. We found some rather exciting customers building things that we'd never thought of. And that was a really great experience and actually felt quite, it felt good for us because we thought that's a great experience there for the guests, but it felt like we'd taken this painful interface away from between what the hotels wanted to do and what the tech vendors were doing. We're saying, look, we've actually made this hotel-ified. It's what you understand. Go use that, and then we'll support you where we want to. And by us effectively getting out of the way for that, we found they've generated amazing things and far better than we would do. And also they can be agile and they can do it more quickly, which I guess is the whole cloud mantra. Let's be agile. Let's do things quickly. Let's adapt quickly, and let's not have hotels spend a lot of money up front in expensive tech stacks that they then struggle to change later on. So many layers of abstraction there.
Thank you, Ben, for the time being. Dimitrios, when you hear all that, all the different perspectives there, I'm getting the kind of notion that the role of the hotel, and I think you touched on this, the role of the hotel will change to almost being a curator. Is that, of somebody's whole experience in another destination, in a destination?
Well, hotels have always played that. You will always go to the concierge and will always kind of create your experience. But I think what's happening with with some of the applications, like what Ben was saying or Doris was saying early on, is that we will understand the customer before they arrive, because we will kind of engage with the customer before asking the right questions. Say, why are you here? What are you going to hope to get out of this experience? Are you coming here with a family? Or are you coming here as a business traveler? Or are you coming here with your mates to go to a football match? And all of those things will lead us to different things. And I think that's a trick that we have kind of not explored in the past. I'll talk to hoteliers and say, okay, what is your market segment? And say, we will welcome everybody. And I said, yes, but what are you going to do with everybody when they arrive here? Because quite often some of the market segments will not be compatible with each other. If the football guys were going in the same room with the family guys, there will not be a happy coincidence. And I think it's really important to kind of understand in advance and engage in advance what value would someone like to get out of that, and kind of go out of our way and surprise guests in a different kind of way. So if you're coming here for a birthday, I may do a little surprise, and not the typical kind of cake, the plastic kind of experience. It's your birthday, I gave you a cake, thank you very much, goodbye. But I'll understand what kind of cake would I have? How can I personalize, contextualize your experience? How can I deliver your cake with a fantastic kind of experience? And the higher you go up in scale and luxury, the higher you're going to see this personalization, contextualization. On the other end of the scale, you see the very bare, no frills kind of properties that they will deliver a price competitive advantage. And they'll deliver, I'll give you the room, but in the best possible way. And what we'll see is that we'll see pricing emerging in a very personalized thing. We will kind of personalize pricing to the levels that the consumer is willing to pay, and going back to our revenue management, yield management, and see how we can optimize consumer requirements and supply-driven things. And a lot of things are happening right now in the industry where a lot of hotels have actually turned their rooms to long stays, and they're renting by month, and they're doing all kinds of things. And I think but always people are looking into what can we do in the future. And in fact, a lot of the things that we've done for a long, long time is exactly what's required. And sometimes when I'm doing training around the world with hotel managers or hotel owners, they say, yes, this is what we were doing 30 years ago. Because 30 years ago, when the industry was not as professionalized as it is now, we are actually giving hospitality from the heart. So it's a mixture of engaging in this dynamic kind of experience co-creation, but using all the tools on the background to fulfill that on large scale. And it's taking advantage of technology to actually do high-touch products and services.
Thank you. I want to just talk about the kind of hotels that will, in the immediate future, perhaps do well. And I want to bring Doris and Dinky in on this one. I mean, last week again, Dinky, you said that you thought that maybe the luxury end was probably taken up, and the mid-market hotels would do well. Can you just expand on that for me?
Well, Rajan, what do you do in a hotel or a lodging business? You sell an experience. You sell a good sleep experience, an F&B experience, and overall, a customer chooses the bandwidth of the product that he wants to be staying in, or affordability levels. Now, I eventually believe that, for example, I'll take Dubai or the region in GCC, except for Saudi, where there is larger capacity of luxury planned out to roll. Personally, in Dubai, you've got high quality in national products already operating at luxury. I like to see stability and regrowth in that segment, whilst the under provider segments in terms of select services, mid-market, upper mid-market, service apartments, extended stay, given a stronger thrust. At the end of the day, as a country grows, a city grows, you've got to look at travelers' needs at every bandwidth. They focus what the government had initially of bringing a particular city or country to the face of travelers internationally was done by them. Now, investors need to go back and see how are they going to capture the movement of people at different bandwidths. Now, we all know that this is, well, you've had SARS, you've had COVID, and you may have something, God forbid, in the future again. But bottom line, you have to have elasticity in the market, both in terms of capital cost, return of investments. And I think there is a clear vacuum in quality mid-market, upper mid-market, extended stay where it's going. And in countries and regions where you see development activity that's going to take place, security, well-being, costs are critical. And that's where the service apartment extended stay becomes extremely important. What are the drivers that influence this at the end of the day for a professional? It's cost of medical, schooling costs for their children themselves, and housing costs. Now, these three need to be capped. When you see investors in these three segments getting greedy and wanting returns like they've had in the past, you've got a problem because the cost of operation for a company is going up. And you've got to reverse engineer that to ensure that you're creating a fertile ground for investors to bring back businesses. And this is important. It's like when you get into hotels and you are You can't play the role of a country or a policeman or a medical authority, whereby you can't, whilst you're bleeding and looking at a recovery, start putting investment costs in high definition cameras, medical equipment, etc. That's got to be picked up by somebody. But your housekeeping needs to be done. And if ever, we've heard colleagues talk about it, all these medical facilities or COVID preventive measures are becoming a part of housekeeping. We don't talk about it anyway. It's a part of your FF&E. What you would talk about, and you would expect customers to come acquire them, grow them, retain them, is going to be interaction with your customers directly to keep them apprised of what you're doing for them. And that's a part of the new age of selling an experience. As I keep saying, those are key factors which, to me, will influence the return of business and most probably help in bringing back investment returns.
Doris, in terms of this thing about long stay service apartments, all that sort of stuff, is that something that Langham do or interested in, or how do you see it?
We do have in our portfolio a number of hotels where long stay is a segment. Here in London, we have, for instance, 14 apartments, if you will, or suites, which are geared up to the long stay, which includes your fully fledged kitchen services, of course, and whatever our customers want. I go also back to what you asked earlier in terms of long-term luxury or mid-term, and I think every destination needs a good balance. And having lived for many years in Dubai, we were always very, very strong on the luxury front. But we were missing at a certain time the mid-market. And I think as a destination overall, to make a destination attractive for a real global audience in various income values, you have to have the balance. So I think London is a good example, like many other very competitive cities, having both. And the extended stay component is in some destinations maybe bigger in others, and the near future will tell where it goes. But I wanted to come back to Ben earlier on the technology, if I may, just for a second, because digital messaging platforms is something we use, and it doesn't require apps anymore. In fact, the guests have the choice. Do they want to communicate via the phone, an SMS, or WhatsApp? WeChat in China, extremely important. So technology moves. And to come back to your contactless check-in, we experience actually very positive guest feedback because the check-in experience isn't taken away. It has been shifted from a front desk, potentially queuing with other guests, to a one-on-one experience, bringing you directly to your room or suite. You just don't, touch certain items anymore. So we'll see how it goes.
I've got to say, from a personal point of view, I still massively appreciate the one-to-one relationship that you have with somebody who works at a hotel. It's so important. I don't come to be isolated in a big building. I want to be engaging with other people. Now, obviously, I'll be taking care over sanitation and whatever else and too much proximity. But ultimately, I want to meet new people. That's why I go abroad. And I think we have to keep remembering that aspect. Now, I want to just, we've only got a few minutes left, but I want to just perhaps ask each of you to paint a picture, a pen portrait, really, of how you, in your most optimistic way, see hotels working, perhaps from a customer's point of view, in, say, 10 years' time. Let's get quite futuristic here. I know 10 years in investment is no time, Dinky, but anyway, let's do that. So Ben, let me start with you. I mean, you're in that world. You're kind of futuristic. What for you is a perfect scenario for a client in a futuristic hotel?
I think the key word that will be there's various buzzwords, isn't there? I think the key word will be ambient, where the experience is something you bring to. Professor Dimitrios mentioned not having plastic experiences, and that this becomes a scale problem. It's how do I collect enough information about that guest willingly to give them a experience without invading their privacy? And of course, people have collected large amounts of information about people at scale before. I mean, Google are experts at this. Do we think they're not going to be presenting the information they have in order to enrich an experience? They have a hospitality program for already. So I think that actually turning up and the experience being molded around you. I turn up with my smartphone. Maybe there's a secure locker where it's got my preferences in the things I like, the when my birthday is, maybe a little more subtle than that, but that's what I said. So when I turn up, the hotel knows a lot about me to best serve me. And I think that will be a scale issue in terms of if these are independent silos that each hotel group or chain has, then the information might not be rich enough to provide those good experience. They might still be plastic. And I think so it'll be whoever does that first and gets the scale so that everyone else buys into it. And that's where I'd hang my hat right now.
Very good, and you're in the right place to deliver. So, to you, Dimitrios, what would you say? What's your vision of that hotel in 10 years' time, and how much is it affected by what's happened recently?
I'll take you forward. I think 2030, it's a good kind of time to think about. And I think what's going to happen is that, okay, hotels are moving in parallel to a lot of other technological developments and a lot of other society developments. And I think we need to see the whole thing, what's happening by 2030. And I think artificial intelligence and machine learning will be driving a lot of those things. So what's going to happen is that when you arrive in your hotel with one of those, the artificial intelligence that you're going to have in here, your personal agent is effectively going to be your personal concierge that is going to talk to the concierge of the hotel. And then what's going to happen is that we'll start personalizing the experience, because we'll say, my agent will kind of represent me. And instead of going to the concierge, it's going to go to the concierge agent on the other side and say, I know what Buhalis needs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Can you personalize the experience in the room? And can you personalize the experience nearby? Given the requirements of the customer, what kind of restaurants are there nearby in 2 kilometers around that they are meeting those criteria? What kind of other experience? Is there any seats on the theater tonight that we can get? Is there opera happening? So this conversation is going to be happening between technology, and then a proposition is going to be pushed to consumers by pulling information from the context. So that is the experience on the technology. And then when you're looking into the physical aspect of the hotel, before I arrive, someone will ask me, what do you want in your room? Do you want a mirror in your room or not? Would you like, what kind of water would you like in your room? All the things that currently we can do, but I need to make a phone call, speak to reservations. Reservations has got to speak to food and beverage. Food and beverage has got to speak to room service, and room service has got to speak to housekeeping. When we kind of get all the ecosystem work together in smart hospitality, we'll say that before Buhalis arrives in a place, those are the minimum requirements. Some people like minimalistic rooms and they would like to take furniture away. Some people would like to have more stuffing. Some people would like to have flowers. All of those things will kind of engage, but technology will be driving, and technology will be enabling all of those things. And as I said before, it's society and technology will be moving 2030, and hospitality will evolving in a disruptive way, I have to say, because quite often we are not very innovative in the sense that we are not adapting so fast. But we will be moved to a very disruptive kind of future where the professionals will actually do very, very well and improve their competitiveness, attracting higher prices and attracting more guests. And you can see several players out there that they are doing that because we are moving that way. But I think the soft customization, the personalization based on the context in real time is what's going to drive hospitality in the future.
Doris, I mean, these are the conversations you must be having quite often, and I guess your competitors too, because you all want to get an advantage. But at the same time, traditional luxury, the old-fashioned big hotel has got its allure as well, hasn't it? So how do you see that
It absolutely does have it, but as said previously and also in the panel, AI will very much be used to predict and anticipate our guests' preferences and make sure that we are absolutely geared up to this. But I think when you ask 10 years out, I think what is as important as artificial intelligence, sustainability. As hotels and the tourism industry at large, we have to go greener. And the younger generation now, you see the political debates, for instance, in my home country, in Germany, where government recently by higher courts was pretty much penalized to say planning till 2030 isn't good enough. You have to give that future generation an outlook. And I think we can do a lot in the hospitality industry to become more sustainable and greener. And that for us at Langham is a huge drive, having engaged a couple of years ago already, but pushing forward. Because the one thing with this pandemic, a lot of single-use plastic has creeped into operations, and we need very, very quickly to go away from it. So, and in particular in the luxury league, there are the opportunities on a bigger scale to do so, in my view.
Environmentalism, obviously crucial. We didn't mention sustainability very much, but you're right, millennials expect it. I think it's expected now by a lot of customers. Dinky, lastly to you, and just to wrap up really, I mean, people are already obviously investing in hotels now to be ready in 10 years' time. So that, but is it more than just bricks and mortar now in terms of how the investor and the hotelier, perhaps they're working together, and all the hotel operator owner, are they thinking, wow, they're thinking that far ahead in terms of the experience of the consumer?
Well, hotels are a part of brick and mortar. It's just the business that you do within the bricks and mortar at the end of the day. The issue here is to get efficient, do whatever it takes from product improvement to service delivery to ensure that it's measurable and it does make money. And that's changing. Brands are changing. They're rethinking their relationships with investors. And I think investors are looking beyond how they did business yesterday. And I believe that they're going to look at it more aggressively. And I keep coming back to creating new revenue streams from a given parcel. And that's going to be the future. Otherwise, you've got to be sitting on some pretty heavy investments with much longer returns, which may not be conducive to investor.
Very wise words to end with. Be creative, be inventive. Absolutely. Thank you, all of you, for being creative and inventive. Thanks for joining me. And I hope that we can engage with this kind of conversation again in the future, because this is crucial. What's happening in the hospitality and hotel sector, I think, is central to how tourism will develop as we move on. Thank you very much indeed. I have to wrap up now. Just to say, hang around, because coming up, we have a presentation of a successful sustainable tourism development, which is in the Red Sea. So please stick around. See you in a minute.
Thank you.